Folks, good evening. I'm Craig Shelton. This is The Cut. That guy would be Richard Big Walker. You can catch Big Richard Walker on Twitter at HMW Big Walker. How about that? You can get me on Twitter at Craig Shelton HMW. You will see displayed throughout the show how you folks can reach us on Facebook and, dare I say, Instagram. That's right. Your man, I'm there. I finally made it. I'm on Instagram, and I am a complete Instagram slut at this point in my life, and don't give a damn about it. I'm proud of it, no doubt about it. Folks, welcome to the show. We have got a gumbo of topics to talk to you about today, and you know I know a little bit about gumbo. I tweet pictures of gumbo all the time, so I decided to make this gumbo today a little special, Richard Walker. This pot of gumbo, I got a little bully in it. I got a former NBA crackhead son in this gumbo.
Ooh, man.
I've got a very intelligent, light-skinned black kid that plays for Duke that speaks well. Imagine that, a black, light-skinned black kid at Duke that speaks well. I got him in the gumbo. And also inside the gumbo, I got a little Gary Kubiak. I got a little Case Keenum. I got a little bit of Arian Foster. You say take the flavor out the gumbo. That gumbo spoiled. That's wrong. That man laying up somewhere sick. And you coming with the spoiled gumbo references. Come on, we God's children.
When you come back though.
No, I got a like I said, a little bit of Texans on the road against you know what, against a pretty good defensive football team that has some challenges on offense, but has shown some life.
Yep.
Obviously, we're talking about Arizona and the Texans. By the time you see this show, that game will have been taken care of. Business will be done with. But we taped this show. It's a pre-tape show, folks. And so we're kind of tasked with giving you our takes on things and kind of having a little bit of a, dare I say, clairvoyant spirit to it, because we got to predict a little bit as we talk about the game 24 hours out. But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you right out of the gate, if the Texans went into Arizona and it's Wednesday night and you're watching this show as it airs, if the Texans went into Arizona Sunday and if they couldn't run the ball against Arizona with Ben Tate and his cracked ribs, the Johnson kid, who actually looked pretty dang good last week, but if Johnson carried the ball for any meaningful amount of carries and put it on the turf, you folks are sitting at home talking about a loss because you can't do what the Texans have been doing in turning over the football. The Texans are not forcing turnovers and penalties. You can't. So if you saw those things happen in Arizona, I know what the outcome is. So, like I say, we got quite a few things to cover with you here on the day. We'll be all over the place, from the NFL to college basketball getting kicked off last Friday night. The basketball season getting kicked off. And you got a chance to see Jabari Parker at Duke, the light-skinned black kid I talked about earlier, who speaks well. And you got to see Mitch Wiggins' son, Andre, but it's Andrew Wiggins, and he doesn't speak as well. He doesn't communicate as well, but boy, is he an awesome basketball player. If he can just stay away from them
Swahili, that boy can play.
That kid can play. And you know what? When I watched tape on him in college, and all I had was YouTube stuff, but when I would go and look at it, I couldn't pin a style on this kid.
Yeah.
I'd say a young Tracy McGrady. Then I would Penny Hardaway in some terms. I don't know if he's as good a ball
No,
handler
well,
though as Penny Hardaway
I
was.
think he's kind of to steal your thunder from earlier. I think he's kind of a gumbo kind of player. I see a number of different players. I see a little bit of Penny. I see actually a little bit of old Grant Hill in him also.
Now that's a name I didn't.
Yeah.
I think his body movements are a little bit more fluid though than
Yeah.
Grant Hill. Grant Hill was always kind of stiff,
But I'm
like
talking
kind of
about
like Clyde,
in terms of his
but super
aggression.
athletic.
In terms of his aggression, he has that type of style, that type of feel to him.
That's odd that you use the term aggression because one of the things that Bill Self talked about that if you were looking for, and I wouldn't call it a criticism, but what we are hearing coming out of Kansas is that Bill Self wants to see Andrew Wiggins, Andrew Wiggins get a little bit more aggressive. What do you think about that in those terms?
I think his game is just fine. I don't see anything wrong with him. You know, the kid he has no problem with getting the ball in the hole.
He just seems to be one of those more laid-back
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And I wonder about him because let's face it, this kid is probably going to be the #1 draft pick. So he's going to be a kid with the weight of a franchise because he's not one of these draft picks at #1 where people don't know about. When I say don't know about, they're not as sure about
Right.
with some of these guys that are the first pick overall. Whereas every blue moon, every 10 years or so,
Yeah, well,
a
LeBron
LeBron comes
like
down.
that. Yeah.
This kid is the next guy to fill that void if he's what he's billed to be, and he's so young. We have to remember how young these kids
Yes.
are. But I just don't know that I see the type of personality in him early on that tells me this is a kid that's going to carry the weight of a franchise. Definitely not particularly early in his career. I think he'll play well. He's going to have to put some weight on and get a little bit stronger, but I just don't know. I don't know how you feel about that because when I look at Jabari Parker
He's
and
more
then I
from college.
listen to
Yeah.
Jabari Parker, that sounds like a kid that can come into a locker room and knows how to
presence
handle
about him.
media.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's going to be
Yeah, that's
interesting.
a trait that's not something that you can't learn, and that's not something I don't expect for him to improve upon as he goes along. But in terms of talent, just raw talent, oh man, this kid is amazing.
What jumped out at you? I mean, when you watch Wiggins, we know, kids like this, we expect greatness. We expect to see them show some athleticism. We expect them to be able to put the ball in the hole. Maybe handle the ball reasonably, depending on their size and position. But here's a kid that's likely going to be a 2 or 3
Right.
if he puts on a little bit more weight. I
Right.
mean, he's got the height to be a 3. What, 6'6", 6'7"? Jabari Parker at 6'8" is. I think he's probably gonna morph more into a 4 than a 3. I don't know if you agree with that. But let's start with Wiggins. What jumped out at you when you finally got a chance to see him
From what
on
I
the floor?
from what I saw, from the limited sample of him that I saw, the thing that stands out to me is his basketball acumen. I mean, this is a kid that sees the floor. He moves well without the ball. He finds ways to create opportunities. That's something that that's the difference between him and a Gerald Green. Gerald Green is one of the most raw talented players I've ever seen, but he doesn't have any type of basketball acumen. That's why
Zero.
That's why all that you're gonna see him in is the dunk contest and hopping from roster to roster for a couple more years before he goes to play in France or wherever.
Yeah.
But this kid actually, you can tell that he understands the game. He knows how to adjust to the flow of the game. That's something you can't teach that.
Yeah. Looking at Wiggins' numbers versus Louisiana Monroe, obviously Kansas took care of business there, 80-63. He had 6. Now this is his first official game. 16 points on 5 of 9 shooting in 34 minutes. 4 for 6 from the free throw line. 2 for 4 from behind the 3-point line. 3 steals, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and only 2 turnovers. And I think the 2 turnovers are the thing that jump out to me statistically.
Yep.
And I say that because the kid was on the floor for 34 minutes in his first game, official game in college.
Right.
Putting up good numbers, very active on the floor. You saw him running the floor, handling the ball. And you know what? And here's a subtle thing I picked up on him. I saw numerous opportunities where he could have just really dunk the ball, had opportunities to dunk the ball and be more demonstrative in a more, maybe I should say, in a more dynamic fashion in how he finished,
Right.
how he chose to finish. And he was just very efficient. He
Yep.
didn't seem like, he wanted to showboat or anything
He just
like
wants to
that.
get the ball in the hole and move
Just,
on.
yeah, real impressive in that guy. Jabari Parker on Duke with the win over Davidson, 111-77 in his debut. Parker stats: 8 of 10 from field goal percentage. I'm sorry, shooting from the field, not percentage-wise, but it was 8 for 10. He only played 23 minutes, but I think that's just more about how coaches doing things at Duke with these young guys. 3 for 3 from behind the three-point line. So this guy developed into a stretch four, and that's why if this guy the stretch four in the NBA is the most lethal.
Exactly. It
Maybe
breaks
the most
defenses
important
down.
role. Exactly. If you
Yeah.
got a stretch four that who can also play with his back to the basket
Yeah.
and do some things around the basket, even if his back, even if he doesn't play on an elite level with his back to the basket, but he's able to score night in and night out around the basket, whether it be garbage baskets or whatever the case is. I think Jabari Parker is a guy that can really, really move forward with his career in a form that he may have a certain level of success early on
Right.
that may, on the surface, appear to be more successful than Wiggins,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Wiggins with a more long-term,
Kind of like a
prolific
Carmelo versus
career.
LeBron kind of.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, and we'll get up out of here and run to a break. One of the things that really impressed me about Parker was when interviewed after the game, he was asked about the upcoming matchup with Kansas, Duke versus Kansas, and Parker said, "It's Duke versus Kansas. It's a team game."
Sure it is.
I really did like that. I really did like that because he just shows that he knows how to manage with the media.
Yep.
And not only
Exactly.
did he say that, he just moved
He
right
doesn't believe
on.
that, but he
Oh, of course,
yeah.
right. Very gracefully.
Yep.
Folks, that's the first segment, a little college basketball. Before you get it kicked off, we're going to talk about a little bullying right here in the gumbo that we got fixed for you tonight right here on The Cut. This is Craig Sheldon. You folks hanging there. Richard Walker will be right back.